37 retiree, the DC 37 Retiree Council, which unfortunately is
Hey,
not
sorry, Bill,
a
just to
member.
interrupt for a minute. Sorry about that. We do not want this recorded, right?
We do want it
Oh,
recorded.
we do. Okay, great. Okay, it's recording.
This should be recorded. So I said the DC 37 Retirees Council, not officially part of DC 37. They have a separate charter from AFSCME, but they made clear to the largest union on the Municipal Labor Committee that they were opposed to this plan. Organizations like the Physicians for a National Health Plan, New York statewide senior action that put on programs last June that attracted each of them more than 600 people. And most astonishing of all, the New York City Organization of Public Service Retirees, a grassroots organization that built power, put together a Facebook page that has 14,000 members. Thousands of people contributed to the lawsuit, and it was their lawsuit that kind of brought us to the point where we are. So without further ado, I see Dean is on the call. Dean, as you know, is the executive director of the PSC and also a labor lawyer. Debbie Bell is going to be joining us, the past executive director of the PSC, and somebody who's very expert on these healthcare matters. Donna Costa from the Welfare Fund, if she's not on already, will be joining us in a few minutes. And I believe Barbara Caress may be joining us also, who spoke at our last meeting. So before we entertain questions, Dean, if you could tell us more about the lawsuit, where we stand, what we know, what we don't know, and maybe if you or Debbie can also talk about the meeting that we had with Brad Lander last Friday, and then we'll entertain people's questions. Dean?
Great. Thanks, Bill, and thanks actually for that excellent summary of not only where we stand, but sort of how we got here. And congratulations to you all on this outcome of your tremendous activism. Although we don't have an answer yet, you certainly have to regard last week's court decision as a significant victory. And as I heard somebody say, it shows you can beat City Hall. So as Bill mentioned, last week, Judge Frank issued a ruling which, if it stands, will preserve the right of not only PSC retirees, but all New York City retirees to choose traditional Medicare plus, for example, senior care as their healthcare option without any monthly premium. That came about in the case which everybody's familiar with, that the group of retirees filed challenging the decision last summer by the city and the MLC to care plus senior care to the privatized Medicare Advantage program run by the so-called Alliance. And as everybody knows, we, along with several health, voted at the time against that change. So what the city did, as Bill mentioned, in response to the judge's ruling, they did two things. One, they filed a notice of appeal. They did that last week, and then they put, I think, some important information on the Office of Labor Relations website, which now says the New York City Medicare Advantage Plus plan is not being implemented on April 1st. Retirees do not need to opt out of the Medicare Advantage Plus program to remain in senior care or their current plan on April 1st. And all retirees will remain in their current plans until further notice. So that's what it says right now on the OLR website. Should also note that the judge did reject the other challenges brought by the retirees. For example, he found that the city was within its rights to select the Alliance to administer the MA Plus program. But the key ruling for us, which we have to consider a victory, I think, is that he found that Section 12-126 of the City Administrative Code requires the city to pay for any healthcare plan it offers to retirees up to a cap. So as Bill said, and as I said, that means that retirees will not have to pay that $191 monthly premium to keep their senior care coverage as long as the city continues to offer that plan, and as long as the ruling is not overturned on appeal. The other aspect of the order that's important to be aware of is the judge did say the city has to give retirees at least 3 months to opt out of the plan once it's implemented in order to keep their current coverage. If the judge's order is upheld, a retiree who decides to stay in senior care or any other health care plan offered by the city won't have to pay a premium as long as the city continues to offer that plan and the monthly premium doesn't exceed the HIP HMO threshold, which currently, Debbie looked it up, but it's over $700. If, on the other hand, the ruling is overturned on appeal, the city will likely seek to implement the MA Plus plan as soon as it can. So that's kind of where things stand. Again, no final answers yet, but certainly a major victory, and we know for sure no April 1 implementation date. So then shifting gears for a moment, the other major aspect of this that we've been working on is to raise concerns about and challenges to the contract between the Alliance and the city. Debbie Bell and Barbara Caress both did some tremendous research, which they found disclosed that this contract is really a non-standard health insurance contract in that it does not contain key provisions to assure accountability and to protect against unilateral action by the insurers. And Debbie and Barbara can sort of go into the details of that. But the city comptroller, as you all likely know, has jurisdiction over contracts that are entered into between the city and between vendors. Now, those contracts were actually, if they had dealt with health insurance for city employees or retirees, those were actually kept out of the hands of the comptroller traditionally. But one of the, I think, first achievements actually of Brad Lander as the new comptroller is he somehow managed to get that put back under the comptroller's bailiwick. And the city did refer the contract to him for review a week ago today. So he now has 30 days to review the contract. He doesn't have broad authority to just overturn it for any reason he wants. The reasons are very kind of strictly limited. But you know what he can do and what we hope that he does do is certainly ask a lot of questions and then certainly recommend that the contract be rejected. He can't himself make that final determination, but it's certainly useful to have him in our corner. So we met, a group of us that includes Debbie Bell, Barbara Caress, Barbara Bowen, Bill, Bettina Damiani, our ledge director, and myself met with Brad Lander and several people from his staff, including the person who's in charge of his contract and procurement review. And we ran down what our critique is of the contract, and I would say they were very receptive. So they are going to, when they come up with their questions for the city, promised to run those by us. And so I would say at this point we are engaged, well engaged with Brad Lander and his team, and they will be raising questions for probably for the Office of Labor Relations, and then within the 30 days making a recommendation with respect to the contract. So the third thing I guess I'd like to let you all know is that there will be a letter coming out by email to all the retirees, the PSC retirees for whom we have email addresses from James Davis, kind of laying out what's going on, particularly with respect to the impact of the court decision. And you should be receiving that hopefully either tonight or tomorrow. So that's my update. And I don't know if maybe, Bill, up to you, but maybe Debbie or Barbara could.
You're right. Did Debbie or Barbara have anything to add? Hopefully both of them are on the call, or
I'm here. There's been a number of questions in the chat, and this is going back to the implications of the judge's decision about what do I do? As you have heard us say repeatedly, neither the union nor the welfare fund is in the business of telling any one retiree what to do. The implications of this decision for right now is your current coverage continues as is until we have a date by which the city intends and the alliance intend to implement the new plan, at which point, as Dean said, the judge requires a 3-month period for people to opt out. You are continue to be covered as you were. The main change for those of you in senior care has been the addition of copays. Those copays will be charged. There was a question in the chat about, do they add into the deductible? And the answer is probably not. And the conclusion the questioner said was, we should keep all our medical receipts. You should keep them all anyway, because at least for the calendar year, because Medicare, the doctors bill Medicare, and then it comes back to you in terms of what you owe. If you are asked to pay a copay on the day you see the doctor of $15, you pay it. And there is a deductible in place, and that will show up as Medicare isn't paying until you've met your deductible payment. So the first doctor you see in the calendar year, not academic year, calendar year, may bill you for a larger amount than you expect, but that is because Medicare is saying to that doctor, this patient has not achieved their deductible yet, and at which point you pay the doctor the difference. And then if it's a large charge, Medicare will cover above that. So that's one comment I wanted to make. I can go through quickly the points that Barbara Caress and I problems that Barbara Caress and I pointed to in the contract between the Alliance and New York City. It is not a standard health insurance contract. The terms for accountability that usually show up in such contracts are almost completely lacking. And that is a serious problem as far as we are concerned. 2, the contract gives the Alliance wide latitude to make changes to benefits and pre-authorizations unilaterally without consulting with the city. 3, there isn't the kind of language that should be in the contract that would allow New York City and the MLC to carefully review how well retirees are being served by the Medicare Advantage plan. In other words, information about their experiences, their health outcomes, their costs, etc. And part of the reason for this is all the New York City retirees are mushed into Anthem of Wisconsin. So whoever else Anthem of Wisconsin has in their Medicare Advantage plan across the nation, we are included in that. And the number, and there's no required breakout of New York City retirees, which would in turn permit the city and the MLC to look at how retirees in Medicare Advantage are faring relative to retirees who opt to stay, say, in senior care or whatever. These are, in our view, quite significant problems. The fact that, and Barbara Caress can go into more detail if you want, Bill, But the fact that Medicare is under review nationally and Medicare Advantage is very expensive, and there is a strong likelihood that going forward, national Medicare is going to attempt to, at the behest of Congress, rein in some of the Medicare Advantage payments that they are making. That is likely to have a ripple effect on the ability of the Alliance to meet what they have set forth as their goals in benefits, et cetera. And, you know, this is a money-making enterprise. And if the feds are squeezing them from one end, they're going to turn around and squeeze patients from another end. So these were among the concerns that we raised with Controller Lander and his staff.
Barbara Koresh, do you have anything to add to this?
No, I think we should move on to the questions because they seem to be mounting.
You're right, as questions, and I'm sure that there are a lot of questions about opting out. A number of people have emailed me, and I've also read elsewhere that people calling the 833 number at the Alliance are being told that they're not taking opt-outs now. So we'll try to find out more about this. But with that said, why don't we go to questions? And please, you know, your question should focus on this change series of events and facts and what that means. Not very don't necessarily ask questions about your particular personal situation. I mean, that's very important, and I suggest that the person to get in touch with would be Patrick Smith at the Welfare Fund if you have questions like that. Patrick is not here today because he has a well-earned day off. Good for Patrick. So Samantha, if you could open it up to questions and call on people in the stack.
Yep, totally. So far, I just have Cecilia.
I wanted to ask, in the event that the appeal that the city is making is denied and the judge's ruling stands, it would seem to me that that destroys the Medicare Advantage Plus program, because I'm assuming most people would want to stay with the plan that they have now. If that's the case, how likely is it that the MLC will look for another way to gain savings, such as Barbara Koresh suggested in the last time of looking for the city to self-insure?
Yeah, that's a great question and a very important question. And one of the reasons it's an important question is because there is a serious financial problem with the stabilization fund, which unions across the city rely on, and members and retirees, including our welfare fund. So there is a need to come up with money to address the problems that the stabilization fund has. And after the last agreement, the 2018 stabilization agreement, they came up with a list of like 8 different options to save money. And yeah, Medicare, is privatizing Medicare was just one of them. So there are several other options still on the table. Barbara and Debbie can discuss them in detail. They include self-insurance by the city. They include cracking down on drug prices, on the cost of hospitalization. So there are many options, and you know, we are going to be pursuing those conversations inside the MLC to try to kind of redirect the focus in terms of where to find the money.
Oh, that's good.
Okay, next I have Anne.
Yes, thank you. So my question is, does the no monthly premium apply only to senior care, or does it also apply to the other so-called regular Medicare and plus Medigap plans that the city offers?
Right, if the judge's decision is upheld, it would apply to any insurance plan, health insurance plan that the city offers.
Okay.
Yeah, all these plans, if they're under the cap of $776, I believe that's the total, you know, qualify to be premium free, and that means all of them.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
All right, so next, Barry.
Yeah, hi, this is actually his wife. Yeah, we've been following this from the beginning and very supportive of non-privatization. And I'm very aware of all of these things that have come up. So my question is this, in the lawsuit, I'm assuming part of the argument was the idea that people should opt out of something that they never opted into. These are our retirement benefits that were duly negotiated. My question is, would there in any kind of argument be a distinction between retirees who are already retired and future retires? Would there be any opening to negotiating between those two?
Yeah, the judge didn't distinguish between present and future retirees. One of the arguments that the plaintiffs made was that the city and the MLC didn't have the authority to change retirees' health benefits. The judge actually rejected that particular argument. And so the only argument that he upheld was this idea that under the city administrative code, the city can't charge for a healthcare plan up to the cap.
Okay. Thank you.
So correct me if I'm wrong, Dean. So what that means is that possibly in the future, not now, I mean, the city could only offer the Medicare Advantage Plus plan, doesn't necessarily have to offer other plans. But if it does offer other plans and they're below the cap, they've got to be premium free. So we shall see what we shall see.
Okay, next is Erwin.
Okay, Bill just raised the issue that I want to raise, which is that elsewhere in the country, cities and other bodies have gone to Medicare Advantage plans and offered no opt-out. Now, we have 47,000 retirees who have opted out, so obviously there's a very strong sentiment here to do that. But the city is not obliged to offer a senior care option. It could simply go to Medicare Advantage and everybody would be in that plan and it would be a premium-free plan. So my question is, politically, realistically, is the city actually going to even consider dropping the opt-out senior care option and going to a single Medicare Advantage plan? Or is the political fallout from that too great for it to even be considered?
That's a great question. My crystal ball isn't quite that clear. So I can't really give you the answer. Other people might have clearer crystal balls than I do.
Yeah, I don't have a crystal ball, but I think in part you answered your own question, Erwin, by saying that there would be political fallout. Whether people were willing to stand that political fallout, remains to be seen. But given the fact that there would be political fallout, I think it might be difficult for the city and the MLC to only offer the Medicare Advantage Plus plan to present retirees. But, that remains to be seen. I don't have a crystal ball, clearly. I mean,
but the 47,000 is very significant. It's certainly going to go over 50,000, which would mean that 20% of the retirees, current retirees, would be opting out. That's an incredibly high number at $191 a month per person. So it would seem to me that that would be such a strong signal to the unions and to the city that it would be unlikely that they would drop that opt-out provision. But that doesn't mean that it couldn't happen. And then, of course, the city would not have to pay for it and would simply have the Medicare Advantage plan.
Well, obviously, if Judge Frank's decision holds, there are going to be many more than 47,000, as you noted,
way over,
opting out. And I think the reason that they've halted opt-outs right now is they knew that there would be a mass migration from the Medicare Advantage Plus plan to the healthcare plans that people are presently on, that tens of thousands of people would probably opt out. So we shall see. As I said, introducing this, there are things that we know, and there are even more things that we don't know that we need to find answers to.
Okay, next I have Joan.
It's been answered. Thank you. We just need that damn crystal ball.
Okay, then Barry.
Yeah, I have a question. Obviously, none of us would want to make the shift if we didn't have to. At the moment, it sounds like at the moment we don't have to. But the city has to make up 600 million bucks a year. There are differences of opinion about how to do that, but it seems to me that the current situation is inherently unstable. So, I'm looking to have this coverage that I was guaranteed for the rest of my life stay in place. What do you think the likelihood is that this situation will be able to stay in place? I don't see how it can.
Barry, when you say this situation, what specifically are you referring to?
Well, if the judge has now decided that they can't charge us premiums, and if that stands, then of course there would be a mass migration out of the Advantage plan because they would be offering no advantage to us. But then the whole thing could collapse. No. That's
Yeah,
what
then they would have to look at other options, I think, to come
you
up with
think
the money.
that might force them to look at a self-insurance option?
One would hope so.
Aha, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, the next we have Elizabeth.
Thank you very much. I want to thank everybody who was involved in the lawsuit. I want to thank everybody who continues to work on this, both within our union and the rest of the groups that worked on this. I find it interesting that not, except for one answer or another, we are accepting the idea that the city has to find money as though there isn't money in this city. There is money for a lot of different things, depending on which power you have. So we showed some power as a union, number one, and it seems to me that that's something that we have to feel very proud about, and that we have to pursue as a union, and not only talk about this just from, oh, well, this is how this is impacting me today. I mean, another piece of that is the idea that we in the union would accept tiering, T-I-E-R, except T-E-A-R, tiering of, we will hold on to our benefits, but the next generation will already get less and less and less, as we see in many of the unions, i.e. the postmen, et cetera. So I think we have to grab a little bit of the power that we got, and I'm thanking everybody for going to Lander's office, et cetera, but also to kind of wake up our own spirit about the fact that we have to talk about money, and money is around, and we'll see where we're at with the decisions, of course. So nobody wants to pay more money. Everybody wants to have health care. But the question is, can it be for all of us for a long time? Thank you.
That was great. Thank you very much.
Okay, next we have Anne. Anne, are you able to unmute?
Mute. Thank you, Elizabeth, for that very good reminder. Yeah, my question is about what, if any, role the MLC would have to play going forward. For example, the decision to allow us to opt out in the first place. I don't remember if that was something that the city decides unilaterally, or if the MLC agreed to that or would have to agree to that. So going forward, specifically because, and I think somebody asked this in the chat, I believe Michael Mulgrew was very quick. No sooner had the judge's ruling been signed to say that the UFT is no longer going to participate or accept the MA plan, and Mulgrew, as we know, is one of the big players in the MLC.
Thanks, Ann. My understanding of what Mulgrew said, and I don't have it in front of me, but was basically he was kind of the first to say we're withdrawing our support for implementing the plan on April 1st. And I think that's what started the dominoes falling probably and led to the announcement by the city that they will not implement on April 1st. As far as I know, that UFT has not pulled the plug on its overall support for the MA Plus plan, but who knows what the future holds.
I had one more, I'm sorry, just one more quick thing before I forget. As Debbie says all the time, you know, different places are giving different messages and different people are giving different messages. I mean, I personally would advise people to opt out ASAP, but if we're getting different messages, like Myra called today and they said, you know, you can't opt out anymore, or you can opt out. I mean, who's going to give us, I hope our union, the, you know, most accurate information on that?
Yeah, so I've asked our lawyer to look into, assuming it's correct that people are being told on the 833 number that they cannot opt out right now. I've asked our lawyer to look into the legality of that. Yeah, going to reach out hopefully through Donna to the Alliance to find out what it is that they are communicating to their call center people. Because again, I don't understand at all the judge's decision to authorize them to stop accepting opt-outs at this point. I don't like to speculate, but I will just say that if you look at what they put online, they do say retirees do not need to opt out to remain in senior care or their current plan on April 1. So that's true, but that doesn't, you should still be able to opt out if you want to. I haven't seen anything that convinces me that you shouldn't be able to. Yeah, like I say, I've asked our counsel to look into it from the legal perspective, and hopefully Donna will be able to reach out to the Alliance and get some clarity on what they are telling their call center reps to tell people.
Okay, next we have Joan.
I just wanted to say that I have been in touch with, and they are still saying that they're still saying that it's the April 1st is not an effective date. It seems to be that nothing has been decided yet. That's why the opt-outs are being suspended. And they're not taking opt-outs. Until further information, they come with more concrete further information. Everything is really status quo. And I think that that's the best way for all of us to address this, as everything is status quo at the moment. It's the healthcare, if you'll excuse the wording, as usual. And it's as if nothing had changed until we can give you much clearer information, because as Dean keeps saying, we're just kind of guessing and using what little bit we have been told to kind of project something going forward. And that's really not a good way, at least for me, to pass any information along. The last thing I want to do is give you bad information. So I think the best thing to do is just to wait. I know how difficult it is. I know how frustrated I am. So I can imagine how very frustrated you are and angry. But I think the best thing is if we're all just patient a bit longer, and we will try to keep getting that information from the MLC. I was at a meeting this morning. It was briefly discussed, very briefly, very little information, not even anything I could even share because it would not make, it's nothing. It's just to say that the opt-outs were suspended. So I think if we just continue to leave everything as status quo, and speaking for the welfare fund, as soon as we have information, we obviously will share it with the union right away and with Bill right away and post it on our website. And I'm sorry, I wish I could give you better information than that, but that's all I have.
Right, but just so everybody's in their current plan as of right now.
Everyone is in their current plan as of right now. And nothing is going to be changing until something comes out specifically to tell us what is changing. Right now, it's exactly as it was yesterday, exactly as it was the before. Nothing has changed. So until we get definitive information, I think we should just sit tight and don't do anything, because that might just we might create more problems than we're solving.
Okay, so
So
next is,
that's from the welfare fund. Just from the union side, we are not advising folks one way or the other what to do in terms of your own personal decision. Sorry, go ahead.
okay.
No, I take responsibility for my opinion, but it is your decision on what you want to do.
Okay, next we have Joan.
Okay, thank you. I was wondering if anyone was looking into the legality of the city's position that if a retiree decides to opt out of city health plans, that they are then ineligible for welfare fund benefits and Medicare Part B reimbursements. Because at one point I had thought, wow, I would rather just pay for my own supplement, an ARP supplement. But then when I discovered that I would also lose my welfare fund benefits and not have Medicare Part B reimbursements, that was kind of like a deal breaker for me. So I was just wondering if anyone was looking into that.
Yeah, Donna should speak to that, but I've heard her say over and over that if you opt out, you do not lose your welfare fund benefits.
Yes,
Yeah.
unfortunately, that was clearly stated, and it's in the contract.
What's in the, I'm sorry, say that.
It's in the contract that a retiree must be covered under a New York City health plan in order to be eligible for Medicare Part B reimbursement and for IRMA reimbursement. It's specifically clearly stated there. So unless they can break that, and I'm not saying they can or they can't, that falls back to the union, not me. The city can absolutely enforce that.
And what about welfare fund benefits?
The welfare fund, where we are paid by the city, so we have to follow the city. If the
Okay.
city is telling us that it's not, then we can't.
Okay, so there's no challenge to that?
That would be fall back into the union. I'm not aware of it.
Okay, thank you.
But just again, to be clear, nobody's losing their welfare. Looks like Sandra's next.
Okay, two quick things. First, I was told that some of the press has covered this issue, but I'm used to reading the New York Times. The New York Times has not covered this issue that I can tell. I wonder why, and I wonder if there's any impetus that can be given to them to do so. I wrote a letter to the editor, which must have landed in the deep blue ocean somewhere, but that's what I'm wondering about. The second thing is communication with OLR. I tried to communicate with them on a point that is now moot, which is that I wanted to pay, if I had to, pay Emblem directly rather than establish a health annuity, because I didn't want to draw the funds from there. Patrick Smith said, you can't do it. You essentially have to go into default for several months, and then the OLR is supposed to tell Emblem to start billing you. I am concerned about the reliability of the OLR's actions. There ain't nobody in the office for 2 years When I wrote them a letter regarding this issue, where you're supposed to be able to write them, no one ever answered. That was a month ago. So that is another concern I have about the ability to communicate with OLR should we need to. Anyone have comments on that? By the way, I am very appreciative of the work people have done in order to clarify and in order to implement our interests. I bless all of you for the fine work you've done. Very appreciative. So there's the stuff.
Thanks, Sandra. So let me take a shot at answering the question. Yeah, I think you're rational to be concerned about OLR's ability to consistently on a timely basis, handle the complexity of processing the changeover from to a direct bill. For folks, I would be concerned about that too. Again, it's not my place to give individual advice, but so let me just go over what I know about the facts. So this is a question for folks who don't know that applies to people who are on TIAA as opposed to getting a pension from TRS, and which is a lot of our members actually. Because TIAA is not a traditional defined benefit pension plan, there had to be a little maneuver to make our members eligible to get city health insurance, because under the law you have to be a participant in a city retirement plan. So basically what the city agreed to do was to accept that if our folks who are in TIAA had an annuity from which any healthcare costs could be paid, they would treat TIAA participants as being in a city retirement plan. So that's where the origin of this idea that folks had to have, it was mandatory to have a TIAA annuity in order to pay whatever costs were associated with your health insurance. So the concern obviously became, once they decided to implement the Medicare Advantage plan, that for folks who wanted to stay in their current insurance, for example, senior care, the size of the annuity needed to pay that $191 premium was much bigger. So a lot of folks didn't want to do that. So we negotiated with OLR and with CUNY, and we did work something out with them. And I agree, it's not ideal, but it's what we were able to work out. The default option, as if you will, is still to set up an annuity that's big enough to pay that monthly premium. And if you do that, then if we get to a place where we're having $191 monthly premiums, which right now we're not, but if we do get back to that place, your premium could be paid out of that annuity and you won't have to worry about it. If you don't want to set up that big of an annuity, then yeah, that's the solution basically, is just don't pay the premium. And after like 2 months of not getting paid, the city will send you a letter saying, okay, now you have the option to go on direct billing. Here's how you do it. I agree it's not an ideal solution, but that's what we've been able to work out with them. And I don't know if Debbie, for example, you want to chime in on that at all, but that's where it stands.
Let me just say that Dean and Debbie and others have invested many, many hours into this, negotiating with CUNY and OLR. It's maybe not the perfect solution, but I mean, clearly we needed to protect members to make sure that they would not lose their health care as a result of non-payment.
Yeah. The thing about this health annuity, I was told, is that if you die, the remainder of that annuity is lost to your heirs. It goes back to TIAA. It doesn't go to the people you designated as beneficiaries in your will. I got this from a TIAA person I was talking to about how one would go about setting up a health annuity.
That's the first I've heard that. That's definitely problematic, to say the least, if that's the case.
Right.
So I would like to address that. I will get in touch with CUNY and we'll see if we can address that.
Thank you.
And with regard to the New York Times, yes, a lot of people have reached out to the Times. Our communications, to use your metaphor, I think have also ended up in the deep blue ocean. We've tried to update daily in the last couple of days, what's happening. And there is a link to an article. The best article and coverage I've seen on this is by Sam Mellons, who writes for the online publication, The City, or it's also called Focus. And you can find the link on our website. And in the past, he's written a series of articles, very detailed, very good reporting. But yes, to date, silence from the Times. The Daily News has had some coverage. The Post, in funny ways, has had some coverage, but nothing from the Times.
Okay, next we have Ed.
Yeah, hi. First of all, I want to thank, as others have, all of you folks out there who are working to protect us. It's much appreciated. Self-insurance has been mentioned twice, and I don't understand it. Could somebody give me a brief self-insurance 101 course?
I'd be happy to do it. The 5,000 foot self-insurance. So, am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So there are two ways that large organizations provide coverage for their employees. One is the traditional old-fashioned way is they buy insurance from an insurance company. The insurance company takes the risk that they set the premium. They hope that there'll be enough money coming in from the premium to pay the claims. And if there isn't, they add a margin, an extra fudge factor to the rate to say, well, if there's not enough, we're sure we're getting enough. Additionally, commercial health insurance carries with it taxes. And in the case of the New York City plan, that's a 1% tax to the state of New York. And this, if you think it's approaching $11 billion, that's a lot of money that the state is getting in tax revenue. If you self-insure, the only change is that the risk is transferred to the sponsor, in this case, the city of New York. All the rest of it, it's invisible to the participants. You'll still have whatever the card is. But the two critical things is the risk is transferred, so there's no risk charge, which is typically 2, 3, 4% of premium, and there's no premium tax. So we're looking at potential savings of 4 or 5% on an annual number of $11 billion.
Wow.
Right.
Wow. So everything else would stay the same except the structure and the organization in the background changes.
Right. Who takes the same example for malpractice, for HHC's malpractice. From the perspective of the participants, they have no idea, of course.
All right, I understand. I'm really an amateur in this, and thank you, for filling it out for me. But just on the face of it, it sounds like almost too good to be true.
I want to say there's 70 years of complicated history and relationships between the city and these two insurance companies, and it's not going to be so easy to disentangle the financial relationships.
Gotcha. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Stanley.
Hello. Hi. So I have a minor point, I think, but it's worth noting if it hasn't been mentioned. And by the way, also, thank you to all of you. The plan that we currently have, and which obviously will remain for the time being, has three parts to it. The first part, of course, is our basic Medicare, original Medicare. The second part is what Emblem and this is Emblem GHI provide, which I believe is called senior care. But you know, there's another piece that the New York City employee system has been, retiree system has been giving us, and that is the Empire Blue Cross piece, which is not negligible. One major part of it is that if you stay overnight in the hospital, the Medicare, original Medicare, immediately deducts about what used to be $1,200, which may be going up to more, of which our New York City Retirement Employer Blue Cross plan covered $800, so that our out-of-pocket expense was around $300, as I recall. I had one experience. So when the judge rules that folks have to keep the exact same and not have to pay the $191 senior care fee, then my question is, what happens to that Empire Blue Cross if you opt out, which, by the way, is not my plan? Thank you.
Donna, do you understand the question?
I think
Go ahead,
I
Donna.
think you're talking about the hospital, the 365 hospital rider. Is that what you're talking about?
No, I don't think, let me try and then come behind me.
Sure.
Senior care includes hospital and doctor bills. It covers the Medicare gaps for those things. So including the reason why there's a $300 bill charged to you if you're admitted to the hospital is that there's a $300 deductible in senior care. But senior care is not just for doctors. It's not just for Emblem. It's also for Empire.
Does that answer your question, Stan? Were you able to hear the answer, Stanley? Okay, great.
And the 365 hospital also picks up those.
I'm sorry.
Okay, also.
If I just might add a little piece, for example, I've had experience in the hospital, these big ones in Boston have a huge bill, and then they first send it to Empire Blue Cross. And indeed, Empire Blue Cross grants an out-of-state payment of a certain amount of money to some of the costs at the hospital. And then it goes to GHI for any personal doctor bills. Now, if you feel you've answered the question, fine. But I'm just repeating, that's three parts to our current plan. And it's not clear to me that they're also talking about that Empire Blue Cross piece if you opt out. Thank you.
Okay, if no one else has comment on that, we'll go to Rosalie.
Somehow it's not.
I was just going to reinforce that if you are in TIAA, if you annuitize anything, I was told that if you die, definitely whatever monies are left from that annuity, it becomes part of TIAA, whatever it is. The other issue that I wanted to say is that if I was told, because I did have issue with one of my insurances, and I said, can I pay it personally, self-pay? And they said, yes, you could pay. The only thing is that you would lose the 10% discount that we get from being part of the union. So in other words, I would be paying the same amount that somebody that doesn't have a union would have to pay. And that is one of the problems. I don't know if, if you know anything about it, but it would cost me more because I would lose the union benefit for self-paying.
Donna, can you take a crack at that one?
We can't hear you.
I'm sorry. I just checked my email. Could you just repeat that? You asked about, could you repeat that for me?
Well, the fact that if you self-pay insurance, I was told that I would lose the CUNY or the, not CUNY, the PSC benefits that I have when it goes through the union and it goes through the TIAA annuity that was set up for it. So that I wonder if that would still be a problem if we self-pay, because it can cost a lot of money, 10%, depending on the kind of insurance you have, it could be a good amount of money.
I have to tell you, I'm not sure if I know the answer to that. What I will say is that there's still going to be a cost to the city for the program, whether it's self-pay or premium paid. And actually the current, well, that has nothing to do with the retirees. So whichever way, there's still going to be a cost to the city. I don't think the reason that you are in that annuity, and Dean, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, is that TIAA, as part of forming the TIAA, they had to have you in that because of the way that it said that you need to be in the healthcare system, a retiree healthcare system. That's what that whole annuity issue was, and that's how they got around it. I think, is that correct? Am I saying that correct, Dean? I just want to make sure that I'm. So that's why you're in. So whether you have to, you will still have to do that. I can't see how the self-pay or the premium paid now would change that. You still have to meet that criteria. That shouldn't change. Again, I'm not the expert on this. I would believe that in any event, that's a TIAA city requirement, and it shouldn't change if the manner in which the insurance is paid changes. That shouldn't change.
Well, I'm telling you that if I were to pay my insurance self-pay, they would charge me 10% more because it wouldn't be going through the union. Just in case somebody's thinking about self-paying their own insurance, I think we need to have that issue clarified.
You know what? Maybe we could have this discussion offline, because I'm not quite sure I understand what insurance you would be paying for. Are we still discussing the Medicare Advantage, post Medicare Advantage? We're talking about today's.
I'm thinking, I'm making a statement in general. I have a long-term care insurance, and they keep increasing all the time. So it increased to an amount greater than what I had an annuity for, and I asked them to self-pay, and they say if you self-pay, you will have to pay an extra 10%.
That has to do with whoever you bought that policy from. That's entirely from that benefit provider. They're doing that because it's much easier to get a guaranteed, get hundreds of thousands, $1 million from the city in one transfer, rather than have to bill people 250,000 retirees monthly or somehow, or get a separate pull down from your checking account. So that's why they're charging you that. That has nothing to do with this requirement. This requirement is the CIAA trying to maintain the New York City healthcare with OLR. That's the only reason that's being done.
Right. So in terms of, folks, your healthcare, one, remember right now, you're still in your current plan. We don't have a date yet by which you would have to opt out, and you may not have to opt out. If the judge's decision is upheld, you're going to be able to stay in senior care if you're in senior care. You won't have to pay a premium, and you won't have to worry about this. So this whole discussion is, let's assume the city wins the appeal, and we're back with the Medicare Advantage with an opt-out, and you decide you want to opt out and you have to pay a premium, and you don't want to set up an annuity with TIAA big enough to pay your health insurance premium, then the way that it's going to be worked out is that after 2 months of not getting paid, that'll throw up a flag for OLR, and they're going to reach out to you. They'll write a letter, and they'll tell you how to arrange to be direct billed. There will not be a 10% charge for that. That'll just be whatever the health insurance premium is, if we get back to the place where people have to pay a premium. And right now, we're not there. So maybe we can go on to the next question.
Right.
Okay, next we have Michael.
Yes, thank you. Elizabeth made a comment some time ago about budget and money. And she started by saying, there's plenty of money sloshing around here in the city. But it seems to me that union leaders seem to accept budgets as presented to them by the city as unchangeable facts of nature, like Niagara Falls. And it seems to me that also the budgets are political documents, both on the resource side and on the expenditure side. And as such, should be subject to, and are probably subject to power and power relations and how much power various parties put on this. So I'd be interested in your comments, the four of you, or however many of you would want to speak, your comments on that.
I agree. I think that's very, very true.
Okay.
Then, Michael, I think you know me well enough that you know that I agree too.
Okay.
We've had many conversations about this, Michael.
Okay.
So,
all right. Okay. I guess what would be useful, I think, in a small way, would be for presentations and union leaders not to speak about budgets as unchangeable facts of nature, and acknowledge that they are indeed political documents and subject to power and power relations, and how much power various parties bring to bear on this.
the bottom line is we should not be helping the city to manage an austerity budget. That's
Yes.
not what we should be about. And I think that's the position that this union takes. I don't know if it's necessarily the position that most of the other unions in the MLC take, but that's where we are right now.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michael.
Okay, next is Bonnie.
I just wanted to clarify about annuities and TIA annuities. Lots of people love annuities. What it means is you pay a sum of money and you get a guaranteed income for life. If you live a long life, you wind up getting back a lot more than you paid. If you die early, then you've basically lost lost the amount of money. If you had $10,000 and you buy a $10,000 annuity, that $10,000 is gone. It's not going to your heirs, but you get a guaranteed income for life. However, TIA lets you buy an annuity that has a guaranteed period of 10 years or 20 years, where if you die before that guaranteed period, your beneficiary can collect that same income for the remainder of the 10 or 20 year period. So it's totally up to you if you want to do that or not. Some people love it because it's security, and some people hate it because they feel like they're losing their money. But it's not a ripoff. It's an accepted fact of life, and people who don't have pensions often really like annuities because it's of the guarantee.
That's super helpful, Bonnie. Thank you. I hope everybody took note.
Okay, I have no, Evelyn. Hold on, let me unmute you.
I'd like to just jump in and echo what Bill said at the beginning of this meeting, that we have won an astonishing victory. I'd like to remind everybody on this call that we won this victory because we were in coalition with other groups, most of which are small, like us, and most of which traditionally are disenfranchised. I also want to remind the people on this call something I always say: this fight has just begun. We don't know what will result from a city appeal. I have talked with leaders of other unions in the MLC, most of whom have told me that they urged the city not to appeal because it is a fight the city cannot win. There are more than 47,000 retirees who have opted out. And I think Dean is right when he says that the rumors about dissuading us from opting out reinforce the city's fear that we retirees will show our strength. Let me conclude by saying that we have three things we still have to do. The first thing we have to do is to consolidate this astonishing victory with reference to insurance industries. But the second thing we have to do is join in coalitions with other municipal and private sector employees union to fight runaway hospital costs. And there is a coalition currently in existence devoted to that. And finally, this is important. In addition to the insurance companies, there's the pharmaceutical industry. Runaway prescription costs are destroying us. And we have to first look at the Physicians for a National Health Program webinar that's scheduled for, I think, the 15th of March. But we have to mobilize our strength. We have done an astonishing group task. But let me close by saying, let's keep the momentum. Let's not stop. This is the fight of our lives and our children's lives. And we can take on any enemy if we work together. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that tremendous and inspiring intervention, Evelyn. With respect to your the second of the 3 points that you concluded with, I would just like to add that PSC is a member of the Coalition for Affordable Hospitals. And Bettina Damiani, our alleged director, and Len Rodberg have been attending those meetings and sort of spearheading the PSC's participation in that coalition. But thank you. That was a really inspiring and effective intervention. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Evelyn. And I think you said the same thing that Mother Jones said more than a century ago: don't mourn, organize. And I think, maybe that's the message that we should end this meeting with. Actually, it looks like there's one other hand up.
Yeah. So
Katie
maybe we'll take,
Hansen.
yeah, Katie Hansen. I think let me unmute you.
Yes, I was hoping for a point of clarification. I have Empire Blue Cross Blue Shield as my secondary insurance. Does this new ruling mean that I will no longer have to pay a premium that supposedly went from $87 a month to $306.48 as of 2022? I'm just a little confused about that.
I think I'll turn that one over to Donna. My understanding of the ruling is the judge is interpreting the city administrative code to say that the city cannot charge a premium for any health insurance plan it offers up to that cap, which currently is a little over $700. But Donna knows this stuff better than me.
The only thing is, and again, this is why we all have to. This is what makes it so difficult, is the plan. If it were to go into effect, the city's plan says you can no longer have those. The only thing you can have is GHI senior care, and the only thing you can have are the ones that you are in, I believe, already. There is still some discussion on which plans you'll be allowed to keep and which plans you will not be allowed to keep. So that was also my thought, is I was wondering also for those other people who have the plans like your Blue Cross plan, what does this mean for them? If they are allowed to keep that plan, then shouldn't they also be getting the benefit of that reimbursement up to that $700 HIP rate. So again, unfortunately, this we have to wait and see exactly what happens. I don't think anything can be done with that until they actually have an effective date. I know that some of the other plans are not going to be available anymore. They'll only be available up for this year, but I also know that there are a number of people that are already grandfathered in those plans and they can stay in those plans. And I think that's the question. Those people that are grandfathered in those plans that have those high premiums that they're paying out of pocket, are they also going to get that benefit of the up to $700 HIP rate? It's a good question. Unfortunately, I don't have the answer.
So what would you suggest then, opting out and seeing if I can stay in the plan that I have now?
I would suggest you wait and see. I would suggest that until we have more information on exactly what is going to happen with this MA plan. Is this MA plan going to start? Are any of these appeals going to bring any changes or not? Because we can keep guessing about what we should do, but that's the problem, and that's what that really is my main concern, is by us trying to do something, we do the wrong thing and make it more difficult. And that's why I stand by, we really need to wait and see until we have more direction and more information.
I thought it was interesting. I was wondering if they were going to eliminate the particular plan that I'm in, because Empire Blue Cross Blue Shield, isn't that the administrator of the new plan?
It's also
or one of the administrators of the new plan.
They're also the administrators of GHI Senior Care too. So I don't think one thing has anything to do with the other. But right now, we're dealing with the information that we have and the plan that we're most familiar with. And under this plan guidelines, anybody who is in a particular plan is grandfathered. Again, whether anything changes going forward, we'll have to wait and see.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Looks like there's one more.
Yeah, Nanette, let's unmute you.
Yes, so I have can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, so my question is, what court hears the appeal and what is the politics of that court? What are the kinds of judges in it and what can we expect from them?
That's a good question. I think it goes to the first department of the appellate division, which I would say tends to be a little bit more conservative in the sense of being institutional and generally supportive of sort of institutional order, if you could say that's like a broad concept. I think the judge's interpretation of 12-126 is good and it's accurate and it's a fair reading. I think the city's reading of it is strained, but I would not predict what the first department is going to do with it.
Thanks.
So I think that's all the hands, right, Samantha? Anybody else?
Yep, I see no one else.
That's it. So a couple of things I want to do. Again, as usual, I want to thank Dean, Debbie, Donna, and Barbara for their incredible patience answering questions. Once again, we've gone beyond 3 o'clock, not till 4:30 as we did last month. So maybe we should be thankful for that. I've put the link to our webpage, What's Happening to Retiree Healthcare, as their updates, even if they're daily. We put information on that page. That should be the place where you go to. Obviously, they're important breaking updates. In the next week or two, we'll communicate through an email blast. And clearly, since this has been extended beyond April 1st, our next chapter meeting, which is going to be on the subject of current threats to American democracy, we'll do the same as at this meeting. The first hour will be on that issue, and we're lining up speakers for that. But the second hour, and maybe longer than just an hour, will be on this. And if we need to call a special meeting, we'll call a special meeting. Let me also note that I put it in the chat, the information about the working theater performances. So if there's nothing to add, I want to thank you for your attendance and your patience. And hopefully we'll see you a month from now on April 4th when we have our next chapter meeting. So thank you again. And once again, many thanks to Samantha Sherry for staffing this meeting.
Take care, you all. Bye-bye.